March 1961. I received a letter that would change everything I thought I knew about my own movies. But I am getting ahead of myself. Let me tell you what really happened when a simple school teacher from Montana made me realize something that still gives me chills today. The letter arrived on a Tuesday morning at my Hollywood office. Have you ever gotten a piece of mail that felt different the moment you touched it? That is what this was. Plain envelope, handwritten address, Montana postmark. My assistant usually sorted through hundreds of fan letters, but something made her place this one directly on my desk. Inside were 3 pages of lined notebook paper. The handwriting was careful, neat. A teacher's writing. Dear Mr. Wayne, it began. My name is Margaret Thompson. I teach at a small one-room schoolhouse in rural Montana. I have 12 students, ages 6 to 14. I almost set it aside. Another teacher wanting an autograph, I thought. But then I read the next line, and everything stopped. We study your films to learn about American history and values. Study my films for history? I made westerns, not documentaries. I played cowboys and soldiers, but these were just entertainment, weren't they? Margaret continued. We have no film projector, so we read your scripts aloud. The children act out scenes from your movies. It is not the same as seeing you on screen, but it helps them understand courage, honor, what it means to be American. I had to read that twice. These children, somewhere in the middle of nowhere, were performing my scripts like Shakespeare. They were finding lessons in stories I thought were just stories. But here's what broke my heart. At the bottom of Margaret's letter were 12 messages, one from each student, written in children's handwriting, some barely legible, but every word sincere. Dear Mr. Wayne, you are the bravest cowboy. Love, Sarah, age 7. Mr. Wayne, my dad says you are a real American. I want to be like you, Billy, age 10. I watch your movies when they come to town. You never give up, Tommy, age 8. 12 messages, 12 children who believed in something because of movies I made between lunch breaks in Hollywood. I folded that letter, put it in my desk drawer, and sat there thinking here I was. 53 years old, made maybe 60 westerns, and I never once thought they were teaching anybody anything important. But 12 children in Montana were learning about America from scripts read aloud in a one-room schoolhouse. What I did next? Well, let me ask you something. When was the last time you did something just because it was right, without thinking about what you'd get in return? That is what this moment became for me. I called my business manager. How much for a good 16mm film projector? For what, Duke? A school best quality. And I want prints of my 10 best films. Stagecoach, Red River. She wore a yellow ribbon. The ones that teach something. Duke, what is this about? A school in Montana. They need it. I wrote a check for $500. That is about $4,000 in today's money. Made it out to Montana School, Margaret's class. Then I sat down to write a letter that took me an hour to get right. Dear Margaret and students, I wrote, thank you for your letter. I am honored that you study my films. More honored than you know. You asked for advice about teaching values. Here is what I believe. Courage isn't the absence of fear. It is doing what is right, even when you are scared. Honor is keeping your word even when nobody's watching. Being American means believing everyone matters, even people in small towns far from anywhere. I shipped everything that week. Didn't tell the press. Didn't make it publicity. Just sent it and moved on to my next picture. But the story doesn't end there. 6 months later, I was in Montana filming How the West Was Won. Big production. Multiple directors. Epic Western. One day there was a weather delay. Rain. The crew was playing cards, but I got restless. That school. I asked my assistant. The one with 12 students, where is it? About 80 miles from here, Duke. Get me a car. Have you ever driven 2 hours just to see if something you did mattered? That is what I found myself doing. No cameras, no press, no entourage. Just me in a rental car following directions to a one-room schoolhouse. I arrived at 2 p.m. School was in session. Through the windows, I could hear children's voices reciting something. I knocked on the door. The room went silent. Margaret opened the door, saw me standing there, and dropped the book she was holding. Mr. Wayne, I hope I am not interrupting. The 12 students were frozen, staring. One little girl, Sarah, I guessed, started crying, not sad crying, overwhelmed crying. I stepped inside. Tiny room, 12 desks, wood stove in the corner, American flag, and in the back, there it was. The projector, set up on a table, 10 film canisters stacked beside it. You've been using this? I asked. Margaret finally found her voice. Every Friday, Mr. Wayne. The children look forward to it all week. I spent the next 3 hours with those kids, answered their questions, signed autographs on notebook paper, told them stories about making movies. But let me tell you what really happened in that classroom. Little Sarah, the 7-year-old who called me the bravest cowboy, asked if I was ever really scared. I knelt down beside her desk and said, "Every single day, sweetheart. That is what makes you brave. Doing what is right even when you are scared." Billy, the 10-year-old who wanted to be like me, showed me a drawing he'd made of a cowboy. It wasn't very good, crayon on construction paper, but he'd drawn an American flag on the cowboy's vest. "Why'd you put that flag there, son?" I asked. His answer stopped me cold. "Because real cowboys protect America, just like you do in the movies." Margaret had been teaching these children that the stories I told meant something, that the characters I played represented something worth believing in, standing in that tiny classroom. Looking at 12 faces full of hope and pride, I realized something that changed everything about how I saw my work. These weren't just kids watching westerns, they were future Americans learning what it means to stand for something. And somehow, accidentally, I'd been their teacher. But here's what got to me. I asked them what they'd learned from my films. Their answers floored me. Courage, honor, standing up for what is right, not giving up, helping people weaker than you. These children understood something I didn't even know I was teaching. Near the end, little Tommy, the 8-year-old who'd written about never giving up, raised his hand. "Mr. Wayne." "Yeah, son." "Why did you help us? We're nobody." The room went quiet. Every child waiting for my answer. Margaret by the door, also waiting. I walked over to Tommy's desk, knelt down to his eye level. "Listen to me," I said. "You are not nobody. Don't ever say that. You are Americans. All of you. That means you matter. Every single one of you. Doesn't matter if you live in Hollywood or Montana or anywhere else. You are Americans." "That is everybody?" Tommy's eyes got wet. He nodded. Didn't trust his voice. I stood up, looked at all of them. "And when you grow up, you help the next kids, the ones who think they're nobody. You show them they matter. That is how America works. We lift each other up. Understand?" 12 voices together. "Yes, sir." Before I left, we took a photograph outside the schoolhouse. 12 students, Margaret and me. Someone's father had a camera, one shot. That is all we needed. I drove back to the film set thinking about Tommy's question. We're nobody. How many children in America think that? How many people think geography determines worth? I'd been making movies for 30 years, thought they were just entertainment. Now I knew different. Those films teach. They matter, not because they're art, but because children in Montana watch them and learn something about courage, about honor, about being American, that matters more than any box office number. You know what happened to those 12 children? Tommy became a teacher himself, went back to rural Montana, taught in small schools for 30 years. Every year, he'd tell his students about the day John Wayne visited his classroom. Sarah kept that photograph for 60 years. When she died in 2021, her daughter donated it to the Montana Historical Society. The plaque reads, "The day we learned we matter." That is the lesson I want to leave you with in a world where everything's about fame, followers, and going viral. Sometimes the most important thing you can do is drive 80 miles to spend 3 hours with 12 children who think they don't matter. Show them they do. That is what makes you a real American. And unfortunately, They don't make moments like that anymore. But here is something that'll restore your faith in people. Margaret kept teaching for another 15 years after my visit. That projector, still running every Friday. She showed my films to hundreds more children, always telling them the same thing I told her class: you matter. When Margaret retired in 1976, the school board wanted to sell that projector. The community wouldn't let them. They raised money, bought it themselves, donated it to the local historical society. It sits there today with a brass plaque. In memory of the day John Wayne reminded 12 children they matter. You know what haunts me most about that day? It wasn't the children who learned something, it was me, for 30 years. I thought I was just making movies. Turns out I was accidentally teaching America what it means to believe in something bigger than yourself. Every film I made after that Montana visit, I thought about those 12 faces. Every time I put on a badge or a cowboy hat, I remembered Tommy asking why I helped them. Because that is what Americans do. We lift each other up, even when nobody's watching, even when there is no camera rolling. Margaret passed away in 1995. Her obituary mentioned 40 years of teaching, hundreds of students, service to her community. It didn't mention the letter she wrote to a Hollywood actor. But I kept that letter until the day I died. It taught me more about courage than any script ever did. Real heroism isn't what you do on screen. It is driving 80 miles on your day off to show 12 children they matter. That is the America I tried to represent in every role I ever played.